Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. faced pointed questions from lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. It got heated over the course of about 3 hours, where members of the Senate Finance Committee grilled him on vaccine policy and the chaos at the CDC. Democrats called him a hazard and a charlatan and said that he should resign.
Would you accept the fact that 1 million Americans died from COVID?
I don't know how many died.
The Secretary of Health and Human Services doesn't know how many Americans died from COVID. Doesn't know if the vaccine helped prevent any deaths. And you are sitting as Secretary of Health and Human Services? How can you be that ignorant?
You are citing data that you won't produce to the public.
You're just
and you are rejecting
You're
science.
making things up to scare people, and it's a lie.
With respect, I do not think I'm the one making things
You
up.
are
Thank you,
lying
Mr. Chair.
right now, Senator.
I'm asking the questions,
I
Mr.
asked you a
Kennedy.
question.
I'm asking the questions for Mr. Kennedy on behalf of parents and schools and teachers all over the United States of America who deserve so much better than your leadership. That's what this conversation is about, Mr. Chairman.
Senator, they deserve the truth, and that's what we're going to give them for the first time in the history of that agency.
Several Republicans, including 2 physicians who voted to confirm Kennedy, were among those who raised concerns, sharply questioning the secretary.
I don't see how you go over 4 weeks from a public health expert with unimpeachable scientific credentials, a longtime champion of MAHA values, caring and compassionate and brilliant microbiologist, and 4 weeks later, fire her because at least the public reports say because she refused to fire people that work for her. So as somebody who advised executives on hiring strategies, number one, I would suggest in the interview, you ask them if they're truthful rather than 4 weeks after we took the time of the U.S. Senate to confirm the person, just for the future nominee that we're going to have to consider.
I support vaccines. I'm a doctor. Vaccines work. Secretary Kennedy, in your confirmation hearings, you promised to uphold the highest standards for vaccines. Since then, I've grown deeply concerned. The public has seen measles outbreaks, leadership of the National Institute of Health questioning the use of mRNA vaccines, the recently confirmed director of Centers for Disease Control and Prevention fired. Americans don't know who to rely on. If we're going to make America healthy again, we can't allow public health to be undermined. So could you explain what steps you're going to be taking to ensure vaccine guidance is clear, evidence-based, and trustworthy?
We're going to make it clear, evidence-based, and trustworthy for the first time in history.
Do you agree with me that the president deserves a Nobel Prize for Operation Warp Speed?
Yeah, absolutely, Senator. That was phenomenal.
Let me ask you, but you just told Senator Bennett that the COVID vaccine killed more people than COVID.
Wait,
that was a statement.
I did not say that.
Okay, then let me ask, because you also were
Senator, I just want to make clear, I did not say that.
We'll check. You also told Senator Wyden at the outset that you didn't want to take vaccines away from people. And as I conclude, I would like to say this. Because of the conflicting recommendations made about COVID, this is from Eric Erickson, good conservative out of Atlanta, Georgia, occasionally gives me hell. My wife has stage 4 lung cancer. She is one of the people the COVID vaccine actually helps. Thanks to the current mess at HHS, CVS is unable to get her vaccine. I would say effectively we're denying people vaccine.
Senator Cantwell.
You're wrong.
And as we stress the fact that questioning, that grilling was bipartisan, yes, you see Senator Cassidy there, the man who just spoke, who was conflicted about if he should vote to confirm Kennedy in the first place. Ultimately, he did. But I want to draw your attention to the second person who we saw speak there. It was Senator John Barrasso. He's not just a senator. He's in leadership. He's the number 2 in Senate leadership, and he's very close with the White House and the vice president. The fact that he, as a physician and a senator, is voicing concerns in that way is notable. And yet, just before RFK Jr. began his testimony, we also heard from the ousted CDC director, Susan Menarez, coming forward with her side of the story. In an op-ed for the Wall Street Journal, she wrote in part, quote, "The Senate confirmed me to ensure that unbiased evidence serves our nation's health. And for doing that, I lost my job. America's children could lose far more." Menarez goes on to detail what led to her firing, writing that she was told to pre-approve the recommendations of a vaccine advisory panel newly filled with people who have publicly expressed anti-vaccine rhetoric. She says she held the line and was fired for doing so. She adds once trusted experts are removed and advisory bodies are stacked, the results are predetermined. That isn't reform, it's sabotage. Kennedy was asked about those claims during yesterday's hearing, too.
Did you, in fact, do what Director Menarez said you did, which is tell her to just go along with vaccine recommendations, even if she didn't think such recommendations aligned with scientific evidence? That is
No, I did not.
That's a yes or no. So you have an opportunity to call her a liar if you say that you didn't do it, but I'd like to see you respond to this.
No, I did not say that to her. And I never had a private meeting with her. So there are witnesses to every meeting that we have, and all of those witnesses will say, I never said that.
So she's lying today to the American people in the Wall Street Journal?
Yes, sir.
And after all that, the White House voiced its support still for RFK Jr. President Trump praised his health secretary during a dinner with tech CEOs last night, despite admitting he didn't actually watch the hearing.
He's a very good person. And he means very well, and he's got some little different ideas. I guarantee a lot of the people at this table like RFK Jr., and I do. But he's got a different take, and we want to listen to all of those takes. But I heard he did very well today. But it's not your standard. It's not your standard talk, I would say, and that has to do with medical and vaccines. But if you look at what's going on in the world with health, and look at this country also with regard to health, I like the fact that he's different.
A White House official and senior administration official told NBC News that Trump continues to have confidence in Kennedy and his leadership at HHS, and that the hearing was, quote, what we expected in terms of how animated it was, adding that Kennedy's job was safe and the hearing didn't change anything. I want to bring in senior NBC News national politics reporter Jonathan Allen. John, Trump finds himself in a kind of awkward position here on this issue, as one of the biggest achievements of his first term was actually the success of Operation Warp Speed, the program that delivered COVID vaccines. And yet you saw Kennedy there even waffling on it. Senators calling him out on his contradicting positions for Trump should win a Nobel Peace Prize for this, but also he doesn't necessarily think the COVID vaccines were efficient. What was your take here on what we saw yesterday? It was explosive.
I mean, I think we saw with Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s testimony yesterday that conflict in sharp relief, Ali, and he was the sacrificial lamb, as it were, for President Trump's muddled position on all of this. He wants to take credit on the one hand for Operation Warp Speed, for getting that COVID vaccine. And by the way, I think, on a bipartisan level, the senators were very willing to give the president credit for that. And at the same time, there are a lot of vaccine skeptics, anti-vaccine activists within the MAGA wing of the party. Some of them are angry at Trump for some of the moves that he made when he was president of the United States in terms of lockdowns, and he is trying his best to appeal to them. And one of the things he did is put in place Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has limited experience in public policy. His name has been in public policy, his last name for many years. He has limited experience in public policy and is basically known for being someone who questions basically all of the existing establishment, as he put it, establishment science.
And this was also true during his initial Senate confirmation hearing, which is why I think Tom Tillis at one point mentioned this, which is they've done this before with him and with the CDC director, and now it sort of leaves them in a position where they can have tough moments of hearings like this, but it doesn't actually fundamentally change anything so long as he has the president's confidence, which he does. I also want to bring up, John, some new reporting that you have that shows HHS is on the verge of giving a no-bid contract for polling Americans' views of vaccines that would be controlled by someone who has little background conducting public opinion research for the government. What is this about? What did you find out?
So there is a contract being given to a firm called Harris Telecom, which has more recently been known as Harris X, which is owned by the Stagwell Group. And you kind of go through all of it and you get to Mark Penn, the former advisor to President Clinton, who has emerged in recent weeks with this contract pending as one of the most vocal supporters of basically all of Donald Trump's policies. If you go to Mark Penn's Twitter feed, you can do it right now, you'll see him supporting the president's federal takeover. You'll see him supporting efforts to get rid of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela. Basically, every issue the president finds dear, Mark Penn is out there, out there flogging as hard as he can. And now he is in line for this contract to poll on Americans' views of vaccines. Now, there is plenty of public polling out there on Americans' views of vaccines.
Yes.
Why the government needs to do this is unclear. I should also say that that company, Harris Telecom, they have one previous government contract that I could find in searching the databases of the government with the Commerce Department. It's for very little money.
It's interesting reporting that you're doing there, just giving us a little bit of insight into the ways that HHS is operating at this point. But if I come back to what we saw on the Hill yesterday, we've seen the White House be willing to weather a series and range of controversies when it comes to their cabinet nominees. Of course, Pete Hegseth is the first to come to mind. HHS Secretary RFK Jr. now after yesterday. Do you ultimately think that anything changes here? Because to me, when I see the kinds of senators speaking out that I saw yesterday on the Republican side, yesterday did not feel like the partisan business as usual that we often see in the Senate. And yet I am forced to question, does it amount to anything? Is there pressure that could be put on the White House?
I think there is pressure that can be put on the White House. One of the things President Trump likes to do is watch his advocates, watch his surrogates get grilled to make a, make a decision about whether they're doing well enough or not. And you mentioned Senator Barrasso from Wyoming grilling him despite his close relationship with the White House. I'm not sure that's a despite, Allie. I'm not sure that John Barrasso goes out there and grills Kennedy unless the White House is at least okay with it, if not in favor of him really putting Kennedy on the hot seat to see how Kennedy reacts to it. You make a good point. They don't, there's a strain of thought within the president's circle and certainly among some of his outside advisors that they call no scalps, meaning that they don't want to see any of their own taken out. But, Trump likes to get rid of people. So I would say that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is safe today. Right now, and who knows after that?
Yeah, which is the case, frankly, with every cabinet secretary, and that was certainly the lesson that we learned quite quickly in the first term as we were covering that. NBC's John Allen, always great having you. Thanks for ending your week with us up early.
Thanks, Allie.